Come up, honey. Should I bring Ivanka up? Come on. Sometimes they'll say, you know, he can't be that bad a guy. Look at Ivanka. Now, come on up, honey. She's so good. She wanted to make the trip. She said, Dad, can I go with you? She actually said, Daddy, can I go with you? I like that, right? Daddy, can I go with you? I said, yes, you can.
You make your daddy proud. You hear me?
I'm gonna make you proud, Daddy. I'm gonna make you so proud.
You make your daddy proud.
You're gonna be so proud.
Proud.
Proud. Get the fuck out!
Serfs. I'm Lance.
I'm Dave.
And today's episode is brought to you by the letter D for Deportation, because we're going to be talking about DACA and the, Trump's love of people who aren't white and... Well, I know, that's not true. I was about to say white and nationalized. No well, there's no love at all. But I was about to say his wife isn't nationalized. Well, she's nationalized, but she's an immigrant.
Yeah, I mean, he likes immigrants if he's sleeping with them or if they gave birth to him.
Yes,
that's about
absolutely. It. Yeah, that's where it cuts off. Welcome back, Dave.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to have you back. How was the Children's Blood Forest Quest?
I don't feel much better. In fact, I feel considerably worse. Yeah, I think I got some rancid children out there.
Oh, that's not good. The Mr. Burns School of Rejuvenation isn't treating you the way it should, eh?
Yeah, just give me their blood. No, you know what? It was, definitely feel a little worse for wear, but it was nice to get the fuck out of Dodge again and,
for sure.
Totally decompress from society and news.
Well, I was going to say, while you were gone, there was so much news.
I was completely gone out of human civilization for about 5 days. So,
that sounds like bliss. It's bliss. Well, that sounds amazing. So yeah, obviously we have so much news to talk about and we're going to get through it all. But the most important part of every week and what we should start with right now is fan mail.
Oh!
Not hate mail, which is obviously way more exciting. Yeah. Well, I assume this is fan mail. It's a bit of a crudité. It's a bit of just a crude letter, but yeah. James Mapes writes, "The people that voted for Donald Trump are the result of what happens when your mother and father are brother and sister."
Well, that's yeah. I mean, yeah,
it's crude. It's a little reductive. I think there are obviously inbreds in the.
Wait, are we saying that's crude by our standards? Because I mean, have you been listening to our show? I mean, that sounds exactly in line with what we're saying.
Well, thanks for writing in, James. So yeah, Dave, what are you drinking this fine evening?
I'm drinking. In fact, I came back from this trip and I thought I'd have to go look to the liquor store because obviously I haven't been out of town and stuff. I opened my fridge and there's only one thing in there, and that was a pretty good beer. So, I mean, I don't know how the fates worked that one out. But I'm drinking from Strange Fellows Brewing. I'm drinking the little Talisman.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's a great beer. That's fantastic.
I definitely didn't buy this. I have no idea how it ended up in my fridge. Thank you, God.
Well, I was going to say, you don't deserve that kind of light shining down upon you.
No, I do not. What do you got over there?
So I'm drinking, this is by Summer Brewing. It's the UFO Huckleberry. So it's a delightful, juicy Hefeweizen with a refreshing berry finish.
Mm.
Yeah. I was gonna ask this because I see UFO on a lot of beers now. Is UFO? I mean, this one is trademarked, so it's just their brand name. But there's a UFO. I think Phillips makes one as well, and a couple other breweries. Yeah. So are UFOs? Is it just starting to become a kind of beer? Because I think Phillips is an IPA, and this one is a Hefeweizen. So
I don't think so, because I think it's just a trendy marketing thing.
Okay.
You know, every car is based off some sort of fast cat
animal. Yeah. No, that's true. But it is absolutely delicious. It's probably the best UFO I've had. So good job on I don't know, the marketing, the beer, everything.
Summer brewing, right? I've never heard of that. Are they like East Coast beer?
I don't know. Stay tuned.
All this and more
on the next Serfs. Well, yeah, we've got so much news to talk about. We should just get right into it. So obviously there's obviously a lot of juicy stuff to talk about. We have to get to all the hurricanes and natural disasters that are happening because global warming is a myth, of course.
Yeah, it's all a lie.
But I think we should give Myanmar a little bit of focus, just because they're not really in the mainstream news these days, and what's going on there is quite horrific. To be honest.
So the former republic, whatever it used to be called, Burma, Myanmar, Burma, back to Myanmar.
Burma classic.
So yeah, I mean Burma. Let's go with that. Burma was a shithole jungle country that, between Bangladesh and Thailand that basically was spent about 50 years or so locked in like under a dictator and just an oppressive war-torn shithole state. It sucks,
I'm sure that's how they refer to themselves.
Well,
a shithole jungle country.
Hey, they never were they were pretty much stuck in that jungle country. It was at that point. I mean, it was an oppressive regime that was filled with violence.
Yeah,
That's what I mean.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree.
It was a very war-torn country, and then up until recently, it seemed like there was some light in the horizon, and things were finally starting to get good out there.
And every time that happens,
yeah, it sucks because, what's her face? Is she prime minister or president? Maybe prime minister.
I believe it's the prime minister, but yeah, you're talking about Aung San Suu Kyi.
Yeah, she was widely praised for being the person to sort of put an end to it. She was like a human rights.
Yeah, so it was basically going to end decades of human rights abuses. Well, that was the joy cried in the streets at the time, basically.
Yeah, she won the Nobel Peace Prize. She was praised by leaders everywhere and humanitarians everywhere.
Yeah.
And in that time, things have been getting better. They've opened their borders to foreigners. Young people were doing the whole backpacking thing there. Businesses were beginning to settle up. They opened to trade. So for the last, let's say, I want to say it's probably been a decade now, things have been progressing well out there.
Yes, and I would say they were in terms of what we saw in from the media as well. But apparently behind the scenes, what was going down was a bit of an ethnic cleansing of the Muslim minority.
Well, I think there wasn't so much of an ethnic cleansing as much as still severe pockets of persecution.
Yes, as well as guerrilla warfare. Yes. So for those of you who are unaware, there is a overwhelming Buddhist majority in Myanmar, and the Rohingyas are a Muslim minority who are basically being persecuted by the Buddhist majority. So there has been stories of thousands of decapitations, and it's led to the point now where there's this mass exodus out of the country.
Yeah. Pretty much within the last 10 days, things have erupted to the point where, 150,000 Muslims have fled to Bangladesh, jumped the border. There's stories of intense atrocities. I was reading today, there's stories of the refugee lines, basically the lines of where people are flowing out, children, men, women and children are being rigged by landmines by the government's forces, which is, just to murder children and women. It's super fucked up. Burma's always been that one interesting situation Myanmar. But it sounds like it's going back to Burma right now, Myanmar. You guys are losing your grip on Myanmar. But it's interesting how people always attribute like Buddhism with peace, and it's like, oh, Buddhists are never evil or dangerous and stuff. It's like, fucking look into the history of what's going on in Burma.
Well, yeah, I was hoping you would bring up, or like, you know, you can look up the Tamil Tigers or anything in that sphere. But yeah, I mean, maybe that's one of the reasons this hasn't been as widely reported in the news, is that it's kind of tricky to talk about a religious war in which Buddhists are slaughtering Muslims.
You know what? I don't think so. I think it's just that they've always been such an insular jungle country, bordered between two other jungle Far East countries. And for the most part, they have been entirely shut off. There's no Westerners there. There's no tourists there. So who gives a fuck, right? That's generally how the media in the Western world usually looks at
operates. Yeah. I mean, you're right. This has been going on for a long time. I think the Rohingya guerrilla war is maybe on and off for 70 years.
Woo.
Yeah, so that's a very long time. So obviously it's
sorry. And another, like, as bad as this shit's been with all these people fleeing into Bangladesh and I believe Indonesia, who are the two actual borders, pretty much don't want anything to do with the crisis. I think historically Bangladesh says the how do you say it? The Rohingya? Rohingyas. They won't classify them as refugees. They just say, go fuck yourself.
Well, I was going to say, so you think Trump's got an intense immigration policy?
Yeah.
Go to Burma.
No fucking kidding. So Bangladesh recently has decided that they will take in some of these people. I guess they don't have a choice with 150,000 people are coming in. But they're relocating all these refugees to the lowest lying islands that are pretty much subject to the major flooding of the Bay of Bengal. And it's an area without roads. So what you're going to see is 150,000 refugees from a war-torn nation essentially drowned by their neighboring nation. And while the rest of the world's like, whatever.
Well, we got our own things to worry about right now, which it's technically true.
That's fucked up, man.
Yeah,
it's fucked up.
That's really fucked up. Do you have a funny punchline?
Well, I mean, I was planning to go to Burma this Christmas time, but trip's canceled.
But
I'd have no punchline to drowning 150,000 refugees.
No, absolutely not, especially women and children. I mean, it's right out of like Bashir al-Assad's playbook, basically.
Yeah. I mean, if they weren't women and children, I guess if they were men and like, I don't know, super centaurs or something, then I guess, drown them. Fucking centaur refugees. I would drown centaur refugees. There you go.
Your centaur racism has been the bane of this podcast for so long.
What the fuck are we even talking about?
That's why you tune in, folks. The stories that matter. Well, yeah, I mean, speaking of storms and terrible calamities, we should touch on, I guess, all the hurricanes going down right now.
Well, I mean, before even like, obviously talking about climate change and shit, even before the storms, I mean, obviously all these storms are getting massive attention. It's not just the storms that are really the problem. If you look at like what's happening all across North America, half the fucking country, half the North America is burning out of control. The entire Northwest, from like Montana all the way to BC, Wyoming, like everything's on fire. So half the continent, or I can say like not Mexico, I think they're avoided both hurricane and everything else, but Canada and America are basically either on fire or drowning. It's fucked up. Like, I mean, climate change is it's not true, and this is all natural.
No. It's fake news.
I think this is God's punishment because of I don't know, liberalism or lesbians. I can't remember which one exactly.
I think Ann Coulter said lesbianism. So yeah, the hurricane in Texas is obviously been news, or the flooding in Texas has been news for a little while. We could touch a little bit on Trump's response to it, which basically, like everything else, turned it into a story about himself.
Arrived
there, talked about the crowds, left. everyone freaked out because he refused. Well, I won't say refused, but he just didn't meet a single victim, and then returned and then started doling out packages and really demonstrating how like distanced his life is from anything revolving manual labor or altruism or anything like that. Carrying like, single little boxes, handing it to like the drivers of trucks and stuff like that, and being like, put that somewhere, and the whole back of the truck is empty.
It's like, has this guy never, when a guy's done absolutely never lifted a finger in his entire life, when you load a box into the fucking front of a truck.
The driver's seat of a truck.
Do you not understand how trucks work? Have you ever seen a pickup truck before? Maybe he
loves to pretend that he can drive them. Like, we know that. So at this point, what's interesting about that is that that the debt ceiling was fast approaching. Trump just cut a spending deal with the Democrats in order to raise the debt ceiling for 3 months, and in exchange, obviously, release, I believe, $8 billion in aid to Texas.
But isn't that... that's when Trump sided with the Democrats to raise this, right?
Yeah, he sided with the Democrats to raise this.
But is that done? Is it passed? I thought it was just still him fucking like screwing over McConnell and Ryan, but I wasn't sure.
No, that just happened. The U.S. president went against Republican leaders who wanted to extend a debt limit increase for longer until after the 28 midterm elections. Democrats announced the deal just before the House of Representatives passed $8 billion for Harvey victims. Congress will need to approve the deal before it's finalized. So, it's going to go to Congress.
So it's not going to pass.
Well, we'll see. He claimed that he had a very good meeting with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, which is kind of strange. But what I found strange about it was him saying we agreed to a 3-month extension on the debt ceiling, which they consider to be sacred, very important. And I was like, I don't think the Democrats get off on raising this debt ceiling for all charges.
I don't know who he's talking about there. He might be talking about the Republicans don't want to raise the debt ceiling. That's why it's. I don't know what's going on in that world of his.
Well, no, I think he's referring to the Democrats there, and he's saying that they consider it to be sacred. And
that's retarded because obviously they don't. They're Democrats. They like to spend, tax and spend.
And also, it's the Republicans who hold the debt ceiling hostage in order to try and pass wacky legislation. Like, let's not fund Planned Parenthood. When Ted Cruz tried to pull that off not too long ago and shut the government down in the process, right?
Or like, let's not fund, the hurricane victims. I also read that he wants to hold the hurricane. He was originally talking about holding the hurricane funds hostage in exchange for his border wall. Although that might have now shifted to DACA, so he might not care about that. So I don't.
No, that like this just happened. It says 5 hours ago, front page news of the BBC.
Yeah, I saw that thing today, but I wasn't sure. But it does have to go to Congress, right? So if it has to go to Congress, we can't assume it'll pass.
No, absolutely. Yeah. So I guess more FUBAR in Congress for all of us to enjoy. And while that's going on, we just found out today that there's going to be 2 even more deadly hurricanes coming on the eastern side of the United States.
Yeah,
I should say southeastern. Yeah,
like that Hurricane Harvey was obviously really bad. It hit Houston. By now everybody knows it. It was a big Category 4. It just sort of sat on Houston and just like pissed rain rather than move around. But it wasn't like as bad as the storm was. It wasn't as aggressive as in terms of wind velocity or sheer damage. It was just the insane amount of it just hovering one place and flooding the whole neighborhood. Whereas this new storm, Irma, that's about to smash down is they're projecting possibly Category 5 when it shit rolls into Florida.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I had heard that Category 5 isn't a category. I thought it went up to 4.
No, it goes to 5. It doesn't go to 6.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Category 5 is the biggest storm it could be. Whereas this one, they don't expect it to linger over, so they don't expect the massive rainfall that you saw from Harvey, but they do expect like some of the great. This is potentially it has the potential to be the biggest, most powerful storm ever recorded.
That's insane.
Yeah. Like it's already, I mean, as we're talking right now, it's fucked over the Virgin Islands, no, I don't know if it's Barbados or Bermuda, but it's
basically the old French colonies are all getting destroyed right now.
It's gonna smash into Puerto Rico, and obviously we know Puerto Rico is impoverished sort of state. I don't know what is. They're not really a state, but you know what they are, a principality or.
Oh, sorry, no, sorry. They're called unincorporated U.S. territories.
There you go, territory.
Yeah.
But the major infrastructure and power company, utilities company of Puerto Rico said that they expect it's going to take 4 to 6 months for them to get electricity back to Puerto Rico.
4 to 6 months.
Yeah.
That's
on
crazy.
Top of obviously insane levels of destruction.
Yeah, just carnage. Absolute carnage. What's the longest you've gone without electricity? Because like I was trying to think about that. Maybe like 4 days when I was really young, and it was kind of fun because you're a kid and you melt snow and boil it, and you all like poo in the same bucket kind of thing.
Hey, I know your bathroom style. I know you poo in a bucket all the time, anyways.
Oh wait, that was prison.
I mean, I spent days in India growing, like, you know, as a child. So I've gone, you know, probably a week or so.
A week?
Yeah, probably. I mean, like, I've gone longer in the bush, being a bushman, but like, living in society, which I guess, like I said, India, so that doesn't really count. So in Canada, I've probably gone 4 or 5 days. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, okay. 4 to 6 months. That is crazy.
Yeah. So this storm's after it fucks up Puerto Rico real bad, then it's going to curl northward and hit the ocean again, gain more power, and then come fucking fist America's wang. It's basically, if Florida is America's penis, it's going to go right up the urethra. Like, just right up there. It's like taking a fist and going right up there.
So it's a catheter, basically.
Yeah, but a fist. It's a fist catheter.
A fist-sized catheter.
Yeah.
That's how you describe it. You should have been a meteorologist. Well, I think that's about the exact time that Trump will start to care about it.
I mean, he doesn't care about anything. I mean, his little resort could get fucked, so he'll care about that. I was going to say, the one good thing of it hitting Florida, and I mean, obviously there's no good thing of a storm of this magnitude hitting any place, but Florida has a good history with, or a bad history, or at least a history with hurricanes. So unlike a place like, say, Texas that wasn't prepared for this kind of storm, Florida is generally prepared. Businesses, and hopefully at least businesses are built to code. Apartment buildings are up to code. I don't know about poverty and poor people are obviously going to take the brunt of this. But I don't feel like the damage will be as bad as, say, South Florida.
Well, I was going to say, is there any way to actually prepare for a Category 5 storm?
I mean, yeah, you get the fuck out. But I mean, as far as like building codes, there are ways you could, reinforce buildings and build them more up to code, right? I know how, a lot of people are against evil government regulations, but
government.
There's the red tape comes into play sometimes when they don't want your house or your building being destroyed by a hurricane that's going to come by every 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's so true. Well, yeah, that's tragic. I guess we'll stay tuned.
Yeah, I mean, by the time this airs, the majority of the damage will have hit. So,
yeah,
I hope it's not as bad. I hope it blows through. I hope it loses steam pretty quick. And, the death toll that's going to hit those islands are going to be tremendous. Way more than hits, Florida or the Houston ones. I mean, all tragedies suck ass, right? But there's going to be a lot of loss of life in like Puerto Rico and shit. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what? We'll put up a link in the best way to maybe support, or if you want to donate money or any kind of goods to those areas, we'll put it up on the Serfs page for this episode.
And like always, while we have like people maybe listening, always make sure you donate to reputable organizations. There's so many scamming third-party private organizations that essentially are just slush funds for a lot of these charitable funds that go from an average Joe. They act as a middleman, but they end up just gobbling all the money up. So, when you're donating money, look at the best, do your research and make sure that it's going to the best source.
Absolutely. Basically, donate to the Trump Foundation. Donate
Yes.
all your money. All your money to the Trump
Yeah.
Foundation.
Yeah.
Like there's
Yeah.
no more noble cause than the Trump Foundation.
I mean,
We'll
they
just say
might, they might need that money. That Mar-a-Lago resort might be fucked up, so he needs your money. Do it for Trump. Pray for Trump.
Yeah. Speaking of World War III,
Are we going with Trump here, or let me guess, that other crazy lunatic with a terrible hairdo and daddy issues?
my dad's an immortal god. What am I to do? He'll always be the prime minister, or I guess no, the king. What is he? The ruler?
He's who are we talking about? Il Sung or
Oh, Il Sung. Yeah, he's
Il Sung was the eternal president, and his dad was the dear leader, which is the eternal secretary or something.
the eternal secretary. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about this before.
And King Jong Un is going to be the eternal marshal.
Hooray. So yeah, obviously things are getting progressively worse in terms of the North Korea situation. While you were gone in the forest getting children's blood, they launched a hydrogen bomb, which registered.
They
launched. Well, they launched not launched as in they launched from the country. It was done underground. It registered a really strong earthquake. I think it was a 6.8. I mean, there's speculative debates as to what the kilotons of it were, but regardless, it was very destructive. It was significant, and yeah, it's very scary. And at the same time, we're getting terrible rhetoric from the Trump administration. So it's just a complicated issue, getting worse and worse and scarier and scarier.
I feel like we've talked about this issue so much over this course of, this podcast. But it seems like in the last 8 months, obviously, the rhetoric on obviously North Korea's side's really stepped up, and the progress of their technology's really stepped up. It's hard to say how much of this is to do with like the American foreign policy, how much that had to do with the American foreign policy that came before it. But obviously shit spiraling sort of out of control here.
Yeah, and there is no good options, as everyone has said. So the latest course of action coming from Washington is basically the U.S. has proposed to the UN that they want to ban oil exports to North Korea. And the two biggest contenders there would be China and Russia. The majority of oil that is imported into North Korea comes from China, but they've started to rely heavily on Putin as well at the same time. In terms of Putin's response to that, he said no.
Wow, what a shocker.
Yeah.
Everybody else has sanctions on Russia and they can't sell their oil anywhere else. I mean, yeah. And it pisses off America and China. Oh, yeah. Putin's dick is definitely getting in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's a quote from him. Without political and diplomatic tools, it is impossible to make headway in the current situation. To be more precise, it is impossible. Yeah, so that's Putin on the North Korean situation, basically.
So basically what we're dealing with is we got global warming with crazy monsoons in South Asia and the jungle area there. We have North America half on fire. Australia starting to catch on fire. Hurricanes blowing up everywhere. You have North Korea gaining nukes. Putin taking dick pills and doing God knows what with who knows what. And Donald Trump is president of the free world.
Buckle up. It's a crazy time to be alive. Well, I mean, it's always been kind of a crazy time to be alive. If you were alive during the Cold War, you were constantly under nuclear threat. I walked down the streets of New York, and there's a couple old buildings that have giant signs that say nuclear fallout shelter beneath, and they're old buildings. So those were Cold War era nuclear fallout shelters that were built.
I'm sure those fallout sectors or shelters would have worked tremendously. It's like an old oh no, nuclear bomb, duck and cover, everybody.
Yeah, all we need is some pomade and we're good, see? Yeah. So yeah, it's getting more complicated. We're staying tuned, but I mean, I don't think we have a lot to contribute to this debate. We've already said it in depth that there is no real good options. Ultimately, I think any headway forward has to come from diplomatic solutions. Otherwise, it's just what World War III. It's just nuclear war.
Yeah. We could send Dennis Rodman over there, and maybe he'll end it. That's our best bet. Our best bet for diplomacy is led by fucking Dennis Rodman.
We haven't heard from him in a long time.
I'm sure he'll pop up soon.
So yeah, I guess speaking of spineless cowards who urinate themselves, we have to check in on our good boy Martin Shkreli, and things have not been great for him. So some people might know that he actually bought the sole copy of the Wu-Tang Clan album Once Upon a Time in Shaolin, and he was the only guy who owns it. He bought it for $2 million, and then in Shkreli dickish fashion, he just went on social media and would play like 15 seconds of it and make fun of it and be like, "Oh, you guys will never hear what this sounds like." But I don't know if this has anything to do with his legal troubles. He just listed it on eBay.
Oh,
and it's selling for $100,000.
Did he? Oh wait, he bought it for $2 million and he's selling for $100,000.
It's currently sitting at $100,000. So I mean, if you guys want to jump on, $101,000.
I mean, I hope the Wu-Tang just buy it back, and
Yeah, that would be great. It's selling for 10% of the price that he paid for it, basically.
Fuck him. You know what I was thinking about him the other day? I think he was saying some shit about, he was bad-mouthing Mueller or something, telling people to beat him up or some fucking obnoxious turdy thing. But I just, after what happened with Sheriff Joe Dickbag, I'm now convinced that Trump's going to pardon him.
Really?
Yeah.
But
I think Trump's going to pardon anybody who's like a supporter and a fucking clinger on or a fan.
But how is Shkreli in any way related to Trump? Because he's not like
he's a big fanboy and has always been like publicly like loves him and stuff. And that's good. That's good enough for Trump.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah, that's very true. Did you see that when Trump held like basically a mass prayer meeting for the hurricane in Texas, he actually did that thing that he loves to do where he got every single one of the preachers to praise him like one after the other before they started the prayer?
That's fucked up.
I know.
He's the most narcissistic piece of shit ever.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
I hope his tombstone is defaced and defiled for history. You've heard it here, future generations. Once the nuclear apocalypse is done, you find him. You find out where he's buried, and you dig him up with your 7 arms.
Well, I guess we should start on our topic of the week since we're already talking about Trump and all the great things he does, and talk about the Dreamers.
I mean, I sort of saw this shit coming a couple months ago, and he said he was not going to do anything about them.
Yeah. Well, he has flip-flopped on them for a while. There's a lot of news clips where he talks about supporting the DREAM Act.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess we should go into what the DREAM Act is to start off.
Dream on! Dream on!
Yeah, it's basically that song that Aerosmith sang about 30 years ago after he did a whole bunch of cocaine. No, what the DREAM Act is, the DREAM Act started, I believe, in 2001 by a Republican senator, I believe it was, or congressman. The whole principle of it was to give temporary amnesty to immigrants who were brought here as children. Anybody who was brought here under the age of 16 who came here, who had not legal status in the country. The way they went about it was basically you had to be under 16 when you came to the country. You had to have a clean criminal record, like nothing over a misdemeanor or a criminal charge, nothing serious. You had to be gainfully employed, have served in the military, or have, I believe, completed I'm not sure if it's completed or enrolled in post-secondary education.
That sounds incredibly reasonable when you say it like that.
and you have to renew your application every 2 years. And the process was basically within those, while you're extending your like temporary amnesty, in those 2 years, we'll work out a way to get you landed status, permanent status, green card, or what have you.
Yeah.
It's a fairly reasonable system, because the amount of people that fall into the Scream Act were 800,000. 800,000 people who were brought here as children. Didn't immigrate themselves, brought here as children who have been long since contributing members of America, some of which who only know America as home, came here at 2 years old, grew up entirely American, some of which didn't know that they were illegal immigrants, technically, until they grew up and tried to apply for certain benefits or government regulations, or not regulations, government policies, I guess even a social security card and that kind of stuff, where it turns out it's like, hey, you're not actually American.
Yep.
And the process to get anybody who's ever emigrated to another country knows that the process of immigration is fucking difficult. It's just the most bureaucratic nightmare from hell you can ever imagine. So the idea to say to these guys, like, oh, you should just emigrate legally, well, in a lot of situations, it's not really possible, especially since they do classify themselves as illegal immigrants. In a lot of situations, they would go to the back of the line, or they might get kicked out, or it was such a foobar situation. So
Well, I was going to say, do you know how long it would take from you being in the DACA program before you can become a nationalized citizen, or you can even apply for citizenship?
You can apply for citizenship in the DACA program. You can start the process of application almost right away. But that process, from what I've heard, can run anywhere from like 2 years to 10 years.
Right. So and that's how we have all these stories now of people who are in their 20s and 30s who are basically being at risk of deportation. A lot of them are like heroes too, right? I don't know if you heard that story about the guy who drove 100 miles from Texas to help the flooding in Hurricane Harvey.
The guy who passed away.
Yeah, Alonzo Guillen, that's it. He his body was found like just floating in a creek. But like he drove 100 miles just to help out there, and he was one of the people in the Dreamer Act.
Like, these guys are, for all intents and purposes, American. They grew up there.
Yep.
And they contribute. They contribute financially. They pay taxes. They're not eligible for any financial benefits, welfare, disability, any of that. They all have jobs. A lot of them have children now. Like, because this act applies to people brought here before 16, and generally this is from the 80s, 90s. These people are old. They're like our age. And a little older, a little younger. It's beyond evil to and it doesn't. It's not just evil. It doesn't make financial sense.
There's a lot of big businesses basically opposing this, saying that these people contribute to society. They contribute to the capitalist system that you're supposed to enshrine, Mr. Trump.
Yeah, 800,000 people is a lot of people, all of which who are gainfully employed or have a post-secondary degree. That's people who are smart people to your country. Like, I saw a clip from 1980, I guess it would be 84. It was a debate in the Republican presidential primary between Reagan and George Bush. And they're both discussing the children of illegal immigrants. And they're both basically trying to one-up each other about how they will protect the lives of immigrants' children's. Like, they'll do what they can for like illegal immigrants are bad, or, like, not proper. We don't encourage it, but the children are innocent. We should always look out for the children. That's America. Like, it's so fucked up that that's how far it's come. The fact that in 2002, this bill was put forth by a Republican senator or congressman and has been constantly battled in Congress and Senate for basically, I want to, until Obama passed in 2014?
Yeah, I think it was 2014. If you're talking about President Bush, though, do you remember he was really pushing for that thing, the Comprehensive Immigration Reform Act, which was like around 2006, 2007. And that almost passed. And that had a lot of across the aisle support.
Yeah.
I think like McCain, Kennedy, even like Lindsey Graham. Oh, hey, Mr. Murgatroyd. Yeah, they were all on board. And then it just got shut down in Congress. Oh no, it was abandoned in the Senate or something like that. And then he tried to bring it back, but it failed again. So yeah, the thing with DACA is that it has widespread support on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, but they can never get it to pass, right? That's why Obama passed it as an executive order, because these people's lives were left in horrible limbo while Congress and Senate kept playing political football with it, moving it here, moving it there, even though both sides sort of agreed to it. Everybody realized that these are people, by and large, we're talking about 1 million American lives, and by family ties, you're talking about what could disrupt, who knows, 10 million lives. And
well, it's really interesting you say that, because I also don't know if you remember that Obama tried to expand the DACA Act in order to include the parents of the children who were included in it. And at that point, that's when the states started to sue the federal government, and they won that case.
Yeah, I mean, that I don't really have a problem with. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. Yeah, I mean, that's just a topic of, I guess, where you stand immigration wise. But at least the DACA thing, I don't know. It's a decent enough policy. I don't have a problem with them going back to Congress and the Senate right now, which Trump sort of tweeted out after. He's like, well, I'm going to cancel it, and let's go to the Congress and Senate, let them hammer out an actual deal and get this stuff going.
Wait, no. What did he actually say? Do your job, Congress.
Yeah,
DACA.
Yeah. So it's like, are you like, you're basically holding a gun to a child's head and saying, like, if Congress doesn't do their job, I'm going to blow this child's brains out, and then blame it on Congress for not getting job done. That's what the equivalent of what he's just trying to do.
Yeah, it's pretty big. So he's obviously just, passing the job off to someone else because he hates work. But did you see that he made Beauregard, Jeff Sessions?
Oh my God, yeah.
Announce the whole thing.
Yeah, because obviously Trump is too cowardly to go up in front of the media and do it himself.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if you've seen the pictures, but like the pictures of Beauregard going up there before, it's like he's positively giddy to go up there and basically ruin the lives of some brown people.
Oh man, the video is even better because you just hear him talking and he's like, "I'm just doing this to secure our borders."
Oh fuck you fucking racist garbage! This whole policy is nothing more than like more meat to his hyper nationalist racist base. Other than that, like this has like something like 24% approval rating among the United States, which is I think about the lines of the people who actually support him, and about 24% of the people who actually call themselves Nazis or some shit these days.
So you would say that Beauregard is a religious man?
Well, I mean, I think he qualifies. He thinks of himself as religious.
Yeah, and so are like a lot of the people who might say they support this, right?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to pull this up because I thought it'd be funny. I found out what the Bible actually says about immigration.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And it's actually quite funny because the Bible has very strict rules about, holding slaves, how to whip them, and all that kind of stuff. So I thought the Bible would be very conservative when it came to immigration. Yep. But it's not. It's very pro-immigration. Yeah.
Let's hear it.
Well, that makes sense because it's a book written after an exodus.
We must build a wall and keep most people out.
So yeah, I got two great Bible quotes for you. Here's from Leviticus 19:33-34. When a stranger sojourns with you in your land, you shall not do him wrong. You shall treat the stranger who sojourns with you as a native among you, and you shall love him as yourself. For you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. And the second one is even better. It's from Malachi 3:5. I will be swift witness against those who oppress the hired worker in his wages, the widow and the fatherless, against those who thrust aside the sojourner and do not fear me, says the Lord of hosts. So that one's actually against paying illegal immigrants less than you would pay yourself.
It's just, I mean, Jesus would be, I don't know, rolling over in his grave or something.
Well, unless it was against the Samaritans. Let us forget, he called the one good Samaritan a good Samaritan, but the rest were just dog shit. He was so good that it was like an oddity, you know, like, oh, he was a good Samaritan.
It's basically like, it's like saying, Mexicans are rapists and, criminals, but I assume some of them are good people.
Some Samaritans are good people. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. We're having too much fun here. So it's pretty dark. So what do you think Congress is going to do?
I don't think they can come to an agreement. This is the least effectual Congress in American history. I don't think they can come to an agreement over something like this. Mm-hmm. I don't see how it's possible. Yeah. I mean, because both McConnell and fuckface Ryan tried to do the DREAM Act 5 years ago themselves, or 4 years ago themselves. So I can't imagine that the two leaders of each respective house right now would come out and encourage the passing of this bill.
Yeah, no, that's so true. Yeah, it's a really terrible situation.
And like the fact that all these people in the DREAM Act, their information's out entirely with the government because they have been filling this paperwork that basically gave them amnesty. So the government's got a full record of everything. And the way ICE has been operating under Trump in these last 6 months, they've been deporting people like crazy. So basically now these people who are vulnerable have just given their papers away to the Gestapo of fucking Trump, who will kick them out of the country. And could you imagine being a 1-year-old, like say if you were, your parents came here from Chile when you were 1 year old. You found out at 19 that, hey, you were actually not legally emigrated and you have been spending this entire time in the country as illegal. And now they're going to kick your ass out back to Chile. You've never been
which
to
you've
Chile.
never been to, which you have no idea what it's like. And
it's like, get the fuck out. Hey, you could have like 3 kids and they could all be American citizens and you have a job, you're supporting them, but it's like, no, you have to go to Chile.
Yeah. Oh, that would be tragic.
I think, countries like at least Canada. I mean, I know Canada. I think Canada and Mexico should try to open their doors to a lot of these dreamers. The ones who are educated and stuff. It's like the reverse brain drain that America has always done. Take your most talented people and give them status and give them a job. Why shouldn't we? If there's a doctor who's getting kicked out of fucking Minnesota or something, I'd gladly take that doctor in Canada. He's
absolutely. I think one of the head lawyers for the DACA movement is a dreamer himself.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, there is a lot of highly educated, highly talented dreamers.
Of course.
Like you stated, they have to be gainfully employed. They have to have 0 criminal or just minor offenses on their criminal record. So we should get on to, I guess, the crux of the argument that most people make against illegal immigrants, and that's, of course, they took our jobs. Took our jobs.
Yeah. I mean, this situation, they didn't take your jobs. They're basically been living here forever, and they already have their jobs. They're Americans, but the idea that because a doctor is fucking kicked out of the country, that Joe fucking schmo who can't read 5 words is going to become a doctor seems a little bit.
I got my GED, son.
I mean,
absolutely.
I believe the Cato Institute, which is one of those super right-wing conservative think tanks, said the implementation of the deportation of the DACA Act would cost the economy conservatively $200 billion.
Jeez.
And that's from a very conservative angle. It could easily be way worse than that.
Oh man. Well, even if you want to take the stance that illegal immigrants take jobs, on the base level, what was that great quote by Greg Giraldo where he's like, taking your jobs, what were you really really fighting for that toilet cleaning position? Did you really want to
Yeah, it's like you're not going to pick berries on a fucking farm in Alabama.
You're not going to go pick berries, in a field. You're not going to do that.
Yeah.
And in the case of DACA, where they're basically Americans, they grew up here as children. I mean, the difference is basically like their mother didn't jump over the border fence before she gave birth to you, you know?
Yeah.
But you don't know any different.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah. They're children. You don't have, like, you committed no crime. A child cannot commit a crime. You know, it's not like,
absolutely.
what does the child be like, no, Dad, I don't want to go in this country. That's illegal. Like,
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about some quotes here. This is from Mark Zandi. He's the chief economist from Moody Analytics on session statements. And he says, repealing DACA is particularly wronghead as an economic policy. I think the primary thing would be to argue against Sessions' claim at this point is we are full unemployment with more job openings than any other point in history. We desperately need workers in this country.
like, I mean, you know,
So
like deporting a million people basically is a lot of people.
Yes, especially if a lot of them are skilled workers, a lot of them might be nurses, a lot of them might be and the military as well. Like you're losing a huge amount of responsible workforce that are paying taxes.
The taxes, the tax level alone. I mean, these people are contributing to the economy, and you're going to kick them out.
Yeah.
All because it's like it's easy to demonize a bunch of immigrants, brown immigrants. Really, that's it. That's the whole crux of it. There is no actual economic benefit, social benefit, legal benefit. All it is based to it's pandering to that Breitbart racist nationalist crowd. It's just red meat without any actual substance. It's just being vindictive asshole for the sake of being a vindictive asshole.
Yeah. I think that quote there sums it up perfectly. Well, wait, lest we forget, it's also an Obama policy. And
that's the other thing. I mean, we didn't even touch on that. I mean, this is just a continuation of his entire administration, which is repeal anything Obama did.
Yeah.
And this was one of those founding principles, but this was a big core thing that Obama did. It gave, a million people a semblance of stability.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So. Yeah. Well, on that note, should we end on some horrifically horrible quotes on immigration from very, very famous people?
Let's do that.
So this one comes from Franklin D. Roosevelt. Remember always that all of us, and you and I especially, are the descendant from immigrants and revolutionists. So that one's nice.
That was far nicer than I was expecting there.
Yeah. How do you think Theodore Roosevelt's is going to be?
I'm pretty optimistic about Theodore Roosevelt as a Roosevelt's person. So have at it.
All right. Every immigrant who comes here should be required within 5 years to learn English or leave the country.
Yeah. I mean, that at the time I could see it. This is like,
it's not horrible. Yeah,
he's definitely talking about. He's not talking about the Mexicans there. He's talking about the Irish.
Also very true. The conservatives will like this. A nation that cannot control its borders is not a nation. Ronald Reagan.
Yeah. Fuck you, Reagan.
Yeah. How about you control cocaine in Nicaragua? And then finally, I take issue with many people's description of people being illegal immigrants. There aren't any illegal human beings as far as I'm concerned. Dennis Kucinich.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's actually very nice.
Oh, actually, while if we have some time to kill here, I did see a nice little fake news. I mean, we don't like to bring up Breitbart for any of the fake news stuff, but
I was like, don't click on them, don't give them the clicks.
Yeah, never click on them. So Breitbart had a link today. I mean, I saw it through Twitter where they were talking. They showed these pictures of these like mean-looking gang-affiliated Latinos, and it was like, where is your compassion for the DACAs now? And it turns out the image was a Getty image of in El Salvador of the MS-13 gang. Pieces of shit.
Yeah, that's terrible. Sorry, I'm just looking up, trying to find the worst quote here. Just finding very.
I mean,
vanilla ones.
I'm guessing Hitler would have a pretty bad immigration code.
Yeah, it's kind of lowest common denominator, just quoting Hitler. We should play a game. Did Hitler say it or did Trump say it?
No, because Hitler was far more eloquent than when Trump would say.
That's true. He was a great orator.
He was an okay.
We should
he was
just
a loudmouth orator, but
we should just praise Hitler for a little while. Let's.
Oh, we didn't talk about this. I wanted to talk about it, but I forgot about it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Fucking Delta flew a plane like almost right into Hurricane Irma.
What, actually?
Yeah, people are watching because there's like, you know, those apps about flight radar. You can like track like planes all over the world. You can get them for free on your phone and stuff. People are tracking like these planes, and these bunch of planes were like trying to beat the hurricane. And it's like Delta Airlines 431, like from JFK to San Juan. I mean, from the picture I'm looking at it, like almost flew right into the storm.
Jesus, that's fucked.
Everybody else turned around. Where others have turned back, Delta DL 431 presses on.
Okay, this is a good one. We'll end on a quote by our good friend Tucker Carlson.
Okay.
So this is about a small town in Pennsylvania, and he's referring to the immigrants as gypsies. A small town in Pennsylvania trying to cope with streets covered, pardon us now, but it's true, human feces and headless chickens after immigration officials settled dozens of Roma, but you may call them gypsies, in their town. Is the federal government failing its own citizens, or do they just need to grow up and start appreciating diversity?
Oh, God.
Yeah. We got to do Tucker Carlson as a cretin of the week at some point. He's growing too powerful.
Well, he's basically the main guy on Fox now, so yeah.
Yeah, after replacing Bill O'Reilly. Oh, it's terrible. All right, so we are going to post up some links for you to help out with the people who are about to be struck, or sorry, they're currently struck by Puerto Rico by the time you're listening to this, as well as anyone else being affected by the disastrous storms and fires going on across all of the continent, because global warming is a myth. So
Yeah, do your part in making it a myth and donate to the causes.
Oh man, that's cheesy. Oh, that's a bona fide PSA right there.
But yeah, no, do help out because, you know, eventually you're going to get fucked because we're all going to get fucked. So
Yes. Yeah.
let's all help each other because clearly the political powers to be won't help any of us. So it's up to you and me to help each other out. Communism and socialism for all.
And the only people who will be safe are basically the flat earthers, because they'll be safe tucked in a corner of the, you know, rectangular globe that they live on.
Yeah, I guess like hurricanes don't make sense. I mean, I'm not going to start getting into the flat earth stuff.
Next week, folks. Oh, but we do have one exciting thing to say about next week. Dave will be here in New York. We are broadcasting live. The Serfs will be live in Brooklyn. And we also got comedian Pat Brown coming on the show, which I'm super pumped on. She's been on the Colbert Show, so that's really, really cool that she's coming on to talk with us about news, politics, and all that fun stuff.
Nice.
So stay tuned for next week,
it's going to be a blast. I look forward to it.
Yeah. In the meantime, if you have any comments, suggestions, hate mail, please do so in the comment section at theserfs.podbean.com. And for the Serfs, I'm Lance.
I'm Dave, and vaya con el diablo.